Serious, what's something that a friend slash classmate did in high school that was seen as funny at the time, but you now realize was actually not okay? Diabetic classmate using his stabby blood glucose monitor on everyone's leg with the same blade for everyone. As an adult I realize why the teachers slash school hit the ducking roof. Edit. The amount of people asking why it's bad equals the same needle as being used entering the bloodstream of dozens of students, one of which may slash could have had a dangerous and transmittable disease or virus. All needle slash sharps are one use only, don't share. There was a diabetic kid at my school that jabbed a kid in the leg with his glucose monitor. It was funny right through the ass beating, and he stopped thinking it was funny when the non-diabetic kid's parents pressed charges that stuck. The diabetic kid's parents tried to counter with assault charges that got slapped down really quick. They didn't think it was a serious deal either until he was removed from the school. My mom ran a home daycare when I was young, and our neighbor had a kid around my age that was diabetic. One day my mom was making lunch and the 6 or so kids she was in charge of, including me, were playing in the backyard. The neighbor wanted to come over and play. We saw his mom checking his glucose and asked her what she was doing, and she explained it. A couple of kids had a "ooh" or "I hate needles" reaction, and so to show all these kids that it's no big deal, this adult woman proceeded to stick all of us with his glucose needle on our fingers. My mom came out midway through this and completely flipped her shit. To my bewilderment, I didn't understand what the big deal was. It barely hurt. My mom almost lost her daycare. All the kids had to go get blood work at the doctor. Many parents were contemplating finding new childcare. Luckily for my mom, she had become close friends with a lot of the parents, or she probably would have been screwed. My mom refused to even speak to the neighbor after she was done berating her that day. As a diabetic, that person's ducked. You learn pretty early on not to do that. Two diabetic people in this thread going, we get taught don't share needles, but how about don't stab people, lol. Guys in my year went through a phase of brutally wet-eyeing each other with the aim to fully rip the underwear off. Once guys' ripped boxers got pinned on the notice board complete with skid marks and bloodstains. Seemed hilarious at the time, but I die inside a little at the memory. Bloodstains. That is not good. Boys in my high school would constantly kick each other in the balls. I'm a woman, so I won't really understand the extent of the pain, but it's just so bizarre. It wouldn't be normal to punch each other in the face all of the time. Edit. Can people stop commenting on how painful it is and giving me explanations? I get it. When I was a junior in high school, I broke my thumb and was given a flesh-colored plastic cast that fit over the thumb. Unfortunately, it really looked phallic. It was a joke with my friends for a while. Dick hands, because it could be easily removed. One of my friends asked to see it and then shoved the cast down his pants and through his front zipper, and I swear to God, he flashed one of the lunch ladies with it. She literally screamed and ran back into the lunchroom, and within about 10 seconds 4 male teachers come tearing out of the lunchroom and violently grabbed my friend and dragged him to the principal's office while screaming, "What the duck is wrong with you?" To be honest, we all laughed in the holy shit, did that just happen kind of way. About 15 minutes later I got called into the principal's office, essentially to corroborate this kid's story that it wasn't his real penis, but this stupid plastic cast I had on my thumb. My friend got expelled and they were going to suspend me until I told the principal something like, "Did I think that this kid was going to shove my cast down his pants and flash a lunch lady? No, I thought he just wanted to see the damn thing." I got the "be careful who you are friends with" speech and let go. I'm pretty sure the lunch lady quit. Just a quick edit. A lot of people are saying that the kid shouldn't be expelled. I'll just say the 17-year-old boys should not be whipping their dicks out at old ladies, regardless of whether the dicks are fake or not. One of my classmates jammed his thumb up another student's butthole in 3rd grade. Happened at my school too, except it was 7th grade, and it was the wrestling coach doing it to a student. They were in a deadlock and the coach poked him in the butt to get him to react and use that opportunity to pin the kid, and we all laughed. Oil check. It's a questionable move now in wrestling. In the 5th grade, we had a random urinal and sink shitter. This kid would shit in the sinks and urinals in a couple of the boys' bathrooms for a few weeks. It got so bad that the staff/teachers had to take kids in groups at pre-designated times to go use the bathrooms while they waited outside. The kid was in my class and got caught because he was in my class and decided to shit in a urinal while in this group setting. He laughed hysterically the whole time and thought we would all think it was funny. I mean, we did think it was funny, but it was annoying we had to go in groups. He got suspended for a bit because of that, and then those incidents never happened again. Senior year of high school, we had a guy who trashed all of the boys' bathrooms. Thousands of dollars in damage. Everyone knew who it was, but they couldn't pin it on him. Instead, they just locked every boy's bathroom except the one next to the office. Most people couldn't use the bathroom more than once a day because of that dick. We had a gauze pit in our school, which was a pit in the ground with steps leading down that had no clear function. So the culture in the school would be to grasp someone's backpack and throw it down the pit. Once the kid went to get the bag, someone would shout "gauze pit." Everyone would run over and spit on the kid continuously until he managed to get up the stairs. I remember even teachers laughing at this. 90s were a strange time. Almost all the harmless fun I can remember from my school is actually horrific. First of all, yuck. Second of all, depending on the age of the building, this could likely have been a smoke pit where teachers and students alike were permitted to smoke. My middle school, that used to be a high school, had one. Harassing and mocking the teachers. One of them even got a nervous breakdown because of it and was on sick leave for half a year. I feel every school has that one teacher that every year group just collectively decides to bully. In hindsight it was terrible, they were just doing their jobs, but teenagers are little duck in sociopaths. We had a kid that would say just really messed up stuff. Well, one day he said old enough to pee, old enough for me, and we all laughed like bro that's gross WTF lol. Well, fast forward about 8 months after graduation and boom, arrested for child porn. Yikes, that's ducked up. I knew plenty of guys and even some girls that would say ducked up edgy shit like that as a kid. I was guilty too. I don't think it usually translated into behavior like that as everyone matured, but looking back it's still ducked up how clueless we were as kids. I had a teacher, our class tutor, who was lovely, but she was tired of several of our classmates acting like little shits. One day, during our home tutor class with her, several of them just kept messing about, picking on her, and full on blanking her when she spoke to them, acting as if she wasn't there. They found it hilarious. Me and my friends were quite close with her, so we stayed after that class and asked if she was okay. She looked at us and just started crying, saying how she's so tired of it and how they make her not enjoy teaching anymore, and she'd been teaching over 20 years. The next day we actually told the class about it and their faces dropped. I think for once they realized how far they had pushed her. I felt so bad for her. Was it a bad result or good result telling the class about that? She either got hounded after that or it helped. It helped. I think they realized what they said actually had an impact on her. It was horrible to see her just break down. She had only recently recovered from meningitis too, so she wasn't in good health either. My maths class once made a teacher cry and quit. She couldn't speak English that well as she was from Poland. It got to the point where classmates hid her bag and hid items from the bag. One day she had a nervous breakdown and we never saw her again. It's only now you realize that something like that just isn't on at all. Pretty disgusting behavior tbh. Dry humping each other in public was peak comedy at 15. Hump day. Every Wednesday girls would cover their asses with their backpacks and hope the boys left us alone. If you forgot or bent down, you got humped. And sometimes for whatever reason that wouldn't be enough and your bag would get shoved aside for a bump. I hated Wednesdays for a long time, still least favorite day. Putting dead animals in the teacher's drawer. She was just like a regular person, not a super strict or unpleasant teacher. Quite pleasant, even. It was just a stupid prank, but still. I actually changed careers eventually, not sure if related to how shitty some kids are. Edit. Since this is blowing up, and some people expressed concern for the animal, it was found dead. The classmate was a little shit, but not a psychopath. My first high school was in a fairly green area, so finding dead critters on occasion was not unusual. We had to dissect feral cats in zoology and these guys actually took the head off and put it on the hood of some poor girl's car. We had to dissect cats in my 11th grade physiology class. The first day, the teacher spent a good 20 minutes telling us how we will respect these animals who lost their lives so that we could learn, and that any student who didn't would fail the semester. She wasn't kidding. Not high school but primary. We had an asthmatic teacher and those green board with chalk sticks. Once we found out she wouldn't have class if we defill the class with the powder by beating the erasers in each other. She had to move. She would have crisis every day. We were sad. Everybody actually liked her. Edit. Sorry to all the teachers out there. If it makes any easier, on the goodbye party, she made each one a bracelet with those little plastic things. I wore it until it broke for good. Like 3 years. We really liked her, but yeah, hope you get it. Reading all of these responses makes this quote I've heard resonate better. I have a lot of respect for junior high and high school teachers because they are dealing with some of the dumbest methodicas on the planet. Not only dumbest, but meanest. They're old enough to understand how to hurt you, but not mature enough to care. Had a classmate that used to steal this one kid's clothes during gym and replace it with something else. It started out with stupid t-shirt, but grew to girls' clothes like dresses and panties. Eventually it was bad, and he'd leave him like a really short skirt, sometimes a diaper and baby stuff. Everyone thought it was funny, but it was really terrible. I think one of the more messed up things was the teachers were almost in on it. Like they wouldn't do anything about it, just lean into it. That pisses me off the most. Kids are stupid can account for about 10% of why the kid would do that, but teachers leaning into it, or even just allowing it, there's no excuse for that. We had a teacher in middle school that served in a war. I can't remember which war, but he saw some combat, and it had affected him. Some of our more arsehole classmates thought it was hilarious to bring snaps to school. Like the ones you get on the 4th of July, that look like a fat sperm, and you throw down on the ground, to make a snapping sound. Every time that poor man turned around, they would start throwing those snaps because sometimes, not always, but sometimes he would go nearly full blown flashback and hide, nearly crying under his desk from enemy fire. Some of our classmates, including the ones who did it, thought it was hilarious and no one would stand up to them cause those kids were the real white trash, country bumpkin sort of terrors that would seriously hurt you if you crossed them. The principal didn't really do anything about it other than urging the teacher to retire. Was painful to watch. Edit, because PPL keep asking. This was in North Dakota back in the 90s. And I would guess he served in Vietnam, but he just referred to it as the war on the few occasions he actually spoke about anything. I think this one is one of the worst posted here. That poor man. I can't believe that the principal allowed that to go on. There's no way they didn't know what was going on. Absolutely horrific. He knew exactly what was going on, but I think he, like the rest of us, were just scared of those kids and their parents. They were the type to take their shotguns and kill local wildlife for kicks, and had no qualms pointing a loaded weapon at someone to see how scared they would get, then laugh and use their limited vocabulary to try to insult you, usually something racist or homophobic. They were such rednecks one would assume they're doing a skit parodying rednecks. Gotta love small town America. I live in a nation country, so academics is a pretty big deal here, and class competition can be cutthroat. In my small private school, there is an almost fixed ranking in the honor roll, most years, and that pretty much determines the hierarchy. One year, we had a transfer student, and he was very smart, so much so that the top ranks got threatened. Kids would roll their eyes when he recites in class. We'd made fun of him for being a teacher's pet, a lot of supposed petty bullying, the likes. All because he was smarter than most everyone else. Eventually he got less and less involved in class, and by mid-year had dropped out of school altogether. Found out later that he'd ran away from home because his uncle was abusive. Damn, yeah. Extreme bullying is really common in Asia. I used to hear these stories like every other week when I was younger. That's fucking sad. Freshman year of high school, someone left a shaving razor in the locker of a girl who had a light mustache. Can't imagine that helped her self-esteem at all. This actually happened to my art teacher in high school. She was probably in her 60s and had some noticeable hair above her lip. For her birthday someone bought a pack of those cheap razors and wrapped it up. She looked like she was going to cry as half the class laughed. I hope that kid feels like shit when he remembers doing that. A classmate got a new cool bike. For some reason this other classmate wasn't okay with this, so he threw her new bike in the woods and smeared dog shit all over it. He was pretty much found out for doing this the very next day. Kids just are the worst people on earth, Jesus. So when I was in 7th grade, a classmate of mine used to tell everyone that he had sex with his younger cousin. Nobody used to believe him and thought that it was funny, but he used to say that he really did it. Now after we graduated high school I met him and tried to tease him about that thing in front of some other classmates. I thought everyone would laugh, but they all turned serious and apparently he was telling the truth. My very promiscuous friend casually told me that she and her cousin had sex when she was little. I was too young to understand what that really meant until I was older and realized that he'd probably been molesting/raping her as a toddler. He was still a kid too, maybe the same age difference as your story. She ended up nodding on fentanyl in an abandoned row house a couple years ago. One of my childhood friends, who was also very promiscuous, told a group of us that her sister's 18-year-old boyfriend would have sex with her when she was 6. She was bragging about it, and we were all insanely jealous. We were like 12 or 13. We were so naive, we had no idea what it really meant. Now as an adult, I think about it and makes me sick to my stomach. She was clearly crying out for help. So he was bragging about incestuously raping a child? WTF. I never thought it was funny, but a lot of classmates did. There was this one kid that would make fun of a weird girl for both of her parents dying in a car accident. Lots of people laughed, and I still think about it 16 years later. I lost both my parents by age 16, mom at 11 from brain cancer and dad had a stroke when I was 16 that left him brain dead, and my god, I couldn't imagine being made fun of for it or having it used against me. My heart hurts for this poor girl and I hope she's somewhere doing okay today. Thankfully, I am. I could announce to all the other students that a particular teacher had titty cancer, saying it in a funny and mocking tone, and everyone laughed and laughed because the kid said titty and they were regarded as the funny kid at school. We only realized it was bad when the teacher heard it and broke down crying. We didn't realize we were making fun of her dying. I still carry secondhand guilt about that one. That reminds me of the South Park episode where Eric wouldn't stop calling breast cancer titty cancer and got the shit beat out of him during recess for it. When I was in middle school, some kid spiked our family and consumer sciences teacher's chili with sleeping pills. I'm pretty sure someone told, so she never ate it, but that could have ended really badly. I had a well-loved teacher in high school who had some sort of intense aversion to glitter. So OFC, a bunch of the shithead seniors decided to prank him by dumping bags of glitter all around his classroom. The poor man actually dropped to the ground and started sobbing. A lot of the kids thought he was doing it to be dramatic or funny, but it was very clear, especially in retrospect, that he was having a full-blown panic attack. I hope those shithead kids learned something from that. My 10th grade British history teacher would literally keep his classroom blinds down and shut at all times because he was worried of snipers. He was also very dramatic in the way he discussed the battles of British history, so we always thought it was a running joke. Even older siblings confirmed that he had kept it going for years. Well, a group of kids once decided to continually mess with him by opening the blinds all the way up, and the sheer look of horror on his face when that would happen made it seem like his fear was real. Great teacher. Weird dude. Throw peanuts at the kid with a nut allergy. This happened in the UK fairly recently. Kid with dairy allergy got a slice of cheese thrown at him. He died. The actual duck. I was about to call this out as bullshit, but nope. I went to a Catholic school where a bunch of priests lived in a rectory on the campus. There was one kid in my class who was always getting in trouble and forced by this one particular priest to go do chores in the rectory. We would joke and make fun of how the kid was probably getting sexually abused by the priest. The kid was fairly popular and would get mildly annoyed with these jokes, but also kind of laugh along with them. Well, it turned out the kid really was getting sexually abused by the priest. I think the priest ended up dying in jail. What the duck? Boys at school would scoop you, meaning they would basically slap your tit. I know 2 boys that got put on the sex offenders list because of it. At my school, only the fat boys got scooped. Was a fatty. I had a guy friend at school who would always make sexual jokes, the kind of guy who could make anything sound dirty and gross. One time I was eating a muffin during lunch and he goes, "I can't tell if you're enjoying that muffin or having an orgasm. It looks a lot like you're having an orgasm." The response from us girls would always be a haphazard "EWW Jason, that's gross." And then we'd roll our eyes and move on because that's just Jason. Years later I got a message from him totally out of the blue. Haven't seen him in years, and he'd sent me a photo that had come up on Facebook of me at his 21st. It was a typical embarrassing photo of me mid-conversation looking really weird. I thought he'd send it to me just as a remember this silly photo of you thing, but once again he made a gross comment about how it looks like I'm enjoying myself a little too much and that I'm doing something a lot dirtier than what I had said I was. Getting this message from him now, someone in their late 20s, just made me feel really gross and uncomfortable. It really made me realize how much of a perv he actually is, and I told him it was a gross inappropriate comment to make to anyone, and promptly blocked him. OMG, reading this gave me flashbacks to a totally weird kid that used to ride the same bus from school as me. He was also pretty pervy. He also found the sexual component in nearly everything, even things that didn't have one. I remember feeling pretty uncomfortable at the end of the ride home cause at that point we were the only ones left in the bus aside from the driver. We lived far from school, but near each other. He would sing disgusting songs and make sexual gestures. We were barely 8 years old. Now that I'm older and look back, I wonder if he was sexually assaulted or something. It was just a completely abnormal behavior for a child so young. A girl I rode horses with when I was in high school and she was in middle school told me that she and her mom watched porn together so they could make fun of the actors. She said this as if it was perfectly normal. She was not kidding. I thought it was weird and funny at the time, but now as an adult I'm horrified. Unfortunately the girl ended up getting pregnant as a sophomore in high school and her mother was so proud of her and happy that she was going to be a hot young grandmother. I'm not sure what happened to the girl after high school, so hopefully things worked out for her. There was a girl in my HS grade that would suck anyone's dick from our grade. Just ask her at lunch and she'll blow you in your car after school. Not even a big deal for anyone. She wasn't very popular with the other girls. Obviously this girl had some ducked up shit going on and no one stopped to think about it. Class clown masturbated in the middle of class, hand down his sweatpants going at it while the teacher's back was turned. Everyone knew what was going on because he wanted to be noticed. People giggling and shying away from the spectacle. He finished in a piece of paper and threw it in the teacher's trash can at her desk. Teacher never knew. Edit, a little backstory, and to clear some things up, the guy was well known for doing crazy stuff. Think Jackass. This was in 9th or 10th grade back in 01 or 02. Most of the class thought it was funny and the rest didn't care too much. Different times. He was seated dead center of the classroom, so literally the center of attention. Everything happened in his sweet pants, so there was no nudity. He stared at the girl next to him the entire time because he had asked her out and she turned him down. She thought it was funny and a tad creepy, but otherwise okay with it. Lastly, I don't keep up with the guy, but he had a brother and last I heard, which was several years ago, one of them died in a car accident. I think it was our guy. And no one said anything. That whole class is ducking weird. And now he has an exhibitionism kink. Now, in grade 8 a so-called friend convinced a child with Down syndrome to come up to me and grope my balls. Over the years I have come to realize just how screwed up that was. We had a guy in our class who went by the nickname of Fuzzy. He was always very nervous and a bit out there. Probably had a lot of undiagnosed problems. The fella that sat behind him kept slapping him on the head while the teacher was at the blackboard. Fuzzy asked the teacher to use the bathroom, and while he was on the way to the toilet and swiped the lad's pencil case. Long story short, end of the class came, the guy found his pencil case, opened it up, and Fuzzy had done a big shite in it. The lad vomited. Fuzzy went to the principal's and was expelled. I just felt really bad for him. He was bullied physically and mentally all the time and just went for it. In high school, one of the students was having an affair with a vice principal. The rumor is, on the day she turned 18, he served his wife with divorce papers, and they got married after she graduated. Everyone knew. It was the worst kept secret in the school. Nothing ever happened to him. I believe they both moved across the country and later got divorced. It seems she got too old for him. All of us dumb high schoolers thought it was funny. The administration knew and didn't care. Her parents knew and didn't care. And this was the early zeros, so it's not like it was really acceptable back then either. But it definitely was not okay. Edit, I forgot about another thing. Some girls went to Cancun for spring break and participated in a wet shirt contest. That eventually became a no shirt contest. Pictures spread around the school and eventually made their way into a slideshow show accessed by a hidden menu into the official senior memories DVD a couple students made and sold at the school. The slideshow show was accompanied with an original song they wrote and recorded about the above vice principal. Punishment was light. They were just excluded from the graduation ceremony. I'm not even entirely sure the girls were 18 when the pictures were taken. At best, they're distributing pictures that were not meant to be shared. At worst, they were distributing child porn. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please subscribe to my channel for more curated daily Reddit stories.